Hi everyone, welcome back to our Startups in 60 Seconds series. I'm here with the CEO and founder of Levell, a wellness and productivity app. I'd like to welcome Madeleine Evans. Thank you very much for joining us. The first question I had, Madeleine, is what problem is Levell actually solving in the workplace, and how does it differ fundamentally or possibly philosophically from the approach that other wellness, well-being, health and productivity apps are actually bringing to the table for enterprise?
Yeah, fascinating. I mean, look, the broad problem is humans in work, but people want performance and we want health, right? Employees want that. I don't know anyone who, when asked, would say that they don't want to come to work feeling well, to be able to do great work, right? To kind of be productive, get things done. Enterprise employers obviously want that. It's no use having unproductive staff. They're also afraid of creating physical or mental health risk, want to promote wellness. Yet, we did a survey back in 2018 of UK and US workers, and the numbers were stark. 70% of people in work feel exhausted or stressed, at least some of the time. 30 to 35% are either feeling demotivated, burnt out, or demotivated. And other statistics tell us that 15 to 20% of employees exhibit signs of anxiety or depression, as well as things like pain, chronic diseases, right? So, and on top of all of that, 65% of employees are either actively disengaged or totally indifferent, basically, to their employers. So employers and employees have the same twofold goals, right, of daily performance and health, yet we are quite obviously dramatically failing. That's the problem that Levell is trying to solve.
Yep.
And obviously that's a systemic problem, right? So that requires a total rethink. Not only, I would say, to some extent, behaviors, culture, how we interact, but also the technology that we use to facilitate that. Levell takes a unique perspective on how we facilitate performance and health in the workplace through technology design. Just kind of bringing that home to where we're trying to play, which is first a B2B software product targeting enterprises. As mentioned, we've chatted a little bit before, we're counter positioning effectively to start the market for HR tech, taking the processes and functions in place for HR, pulling them apart and redesigning them from the perspective of employee. So we're sort of asking ourselves, what would human resource management look like if we were focused on what we need to be, productive and well, our personal resources on a daily basis, pulling that together in a single app designed for employees. We're leveraging some interesting bodies of research, specifically from occupational health psychology, that focuses on drivers of performance and health, usually measured by burnout and engagement. It's probably one of the more robust bodies of work that's out there. So some core values for our product, specifically individual control and employee participation and voice, are drawn from that work. That means that for our application, this is for you. You have one place to go, one place to check in on yourself, to get resources to self-serve, to feedback to your company or team, and if you need to get direct support from either company service or from your teammates, making the whole process of kind of managing yourself in the workplace and getting what you need from this complex enterprise much more seamless, right, in a world of kind of remote work. From a client perspective, I mean, this solves some major sources of strain. So by empowering employees to become more self-aware, to self-manage in work and self-serve more in work, this reduces hands-on requirement for management time. Leaders are overwhelmed, frontline workforce managers are overwhelmed. We see this across multiple types of industries, whether that's like retail or services.
Yeah.
It also helps companies consolidate costs. So where I had to spend on multiple platforms, I now only need to spend on one, being extensible. And it also critically is, I think it's good for the brand, right? So it gives companies a way to slightly reposition the way in which they engage by unlocking greater voice as well as opportunities for participation and growth for employees. So our vision for human resource technology and work, thinking about that from the perspective of what do I need to manage myself, is mobile first, right? You can use it at home or on the go. You should have everything in hand. It should be about you and your needs first. So it should be very personal and it should be employee centric. We say, enterprise ready, but consumer first.
I mean, this is quite a deep, complex field. How on earth did you come to found such a company? You must have had some personal experience or wanted to take a completely opposite view to where the marketplace currently is. We'd love some details on the history.
Ooh, interesting. I would say that it's been a little bit of a life's work. Certainly, there are two different angles that resonate deeply with me. I mean, one is kind of enterprise functioning and change, and the other is this nexus of kind of well-being and productivity for the individual as an employee. I'd like to say I've experienced the world of enterprise work from kind of top, bottom, inside and outside. I've been private equity investor, large cap, enterprises were 100-day plans, P&Ls. I've run business development and product teams inside companies, led projects for digital transformation. Later in my career, I consulted with companies on strategies for innovation. And obviously now I'm on the outside as a startup selling back in, right? So I have a pretty good understanding of the dysfunctions of corporate organizations. Through this process, I came to see how enterprise success is a function of how well people individually show up and perform as a team, from CEO to frontline, right? And likewise, how individual well-being and performance is directly influenced by, my day-to-day work demands, resource, relationships, and environment. And so I guess I've always kind of been a student of creating great workplaces and cultures, and Levell is a continuation of that. In tandem to that, I will definitely be the first to say I have personally experienced a lot of stress in work. I've experienced pretty bad cases of burnout myself. And this gave me an entirely new perspective on kind of the solutions available, I think. My personal experience drove home how critical it is for one to actually be self-aware of how one is not only feeling in work, but how day-to-day tasks, relationships, environment, like we talked about, are impacting our feelings, our stress, our mood, our energy, our motivation as employees, because these are ultimately the things that actually drive, right, our health and our productivity. And so if we're not attentive to those things, then we won't actually be able to implement the right preemptive strategies or learn what is the best way for us to act. The background, I think, from both those two perspectives has come together for me in creating Levell. And now we're on a journey where the idea has kind of caught on, right? Let's bring well-being, productivity together in work. And then now we're just listening to clients. We're doing some really interesting co-design work with Babylon Health. We're listening to individuals in different workplaces, different environments about what is it that you need, right? What are your big blockers? Why are you not thriving? Let's use this product to actually help you break through that.
Got it. Thank you very much for that. We'd also love to know of any challenges that you'd overcome during the course of kind of putting together the team, scaling up the business and bringing it to a commercial point.
I guess building on that, we built our product kind of from the bottom up through market and user research, but also direct work with a core set of early pilot and or reference customers. I think managing the desires and needs of innovative partners, we all know the B2B adoption curve, while drawing in kind of information on where the mass market actually is and what their needs are, is always really challenging. I think we've been managing that well generally, actually. So we've basically been kind of pre-selling ahead using prototypes, ensuring we get a good view of customer personas so that we can match up and be developing sort of to the middle of the market, right? Rather than necessarily just the early adopters' goals and needs.
Very good. I think one of the things that has kind of clearly come out in our discussions with you is how extremely topical this entire platform is, and the concept of health and wellness and well-being in the workplace and its linkages to productivity. Given the impact of the COVID crisis, many companies decided to push all of their workers remote if they were not destined to actually physically turn up and complete their tasks. And this is now kind of bleeding into semi-permanent practice, or at the very least it feels like it is. I'd love your thoughts on how the COVID crisis might have influenced your business, and actually more broadly on what impact you think it's had to the enterprise workforce as a whole.
It's been great overall for business, because one of our core use cases is where you, as an employer, have a distributed or remote employee base. You don't see them day to day necessarily. You don't have the opportunity to be as hands-on. And so you actually don't have the bandwidth to be able to check in with everyone all the time. And you need employees to take more ownership of checking in with themselves and making those right decisions. Clearly, the COVID crisis has dramatically opened up the number of companies and the percentage of their workforces that are experiencing that use case, which has been. The patterns that we've seen over the course of the summer have been really interesting. I would say there have been a whole group of companies that completely ignored COVID and I would say they didn't update their beliefs on how that might impact their business, and continue to kind of think that it would probably be business as usual once we came back from lockdown. We had interest from companies like that then since kind of over this summer started to postpone. We were kind of going to be pitching into strategic board meetings where we were supposed to get sign off. That got pushed to August, then to September. Now it's getting pushed to November again. And what we realized is that that's indicative of companies that actually didn't do the work to reassess their strategy in this new environment and are kind of having to do it now. On the other hand, simultaneously, we're now getting this wave of interest from companies interesting a lot in the retail sector, who basically realized very early on that COVID was going to dramatically change, if not be a risk at decimating their business. Took the hard decisions, decided how many people they were going to fire, who they were going to keep, restructure their organization, if not even also their business model. And now they're ready, back in the market, ready to spend, want to create lean kind of organizations with engaged employees. And so, they want to do kind of proof of values right away. I mean, that's been our experience from a sales perspective, enterprise perspective. Clearly contextualize that with the impact on the economy, and it's pretty stark. And one of the things that I'm personally worried about, I'm generally kind of politically involved. I care a lot about social policy. Is I think there's just an imperative for us as a society to acknowledge that there are going to be a lot of people that didn't expect to be out of work, if likely be in long-term out of the workforce. And so we need to rally as business people, as politicians, right, as influencers and investors, to build new structures that will help both create a temporary safety net and help retrain people so that they can enter new jobs and not really see, the rest of their career as a loss.
I guess that brings us to a bit more of a holistic 30,000-foot view. So what's the roadmap or the vision for the platform over the medium to long term?
Being productive and well, performance and health, like these are values that are prevalent across anyone, right? I mean, in effect, in early days, the prototypes I was doing for Levell, I was showing that to, my parents. You can't count your parents because they always tell you they like everything. But people older, young, aren't in work, and it resonates with people, right? Like, you don't have to be an enterprise employee to care about what you need for your well-being and productivity. And we want to be the best application to help you achieve just that. So we see our market over the long term being by no means, especially from a monetization perspective, constrained to enterprise or even unnecessarily the SaaS model. We are building in a way that recognizes, I think, the ultimate like gigification, distribution, diversification of the workforce, a shift to a much more decentralized open system of work. And that's actually within the bounds of enterprise, like internal marketplaces, as well as across it, in which you as an individual have more control, right? So you are in charge of day-to-day managing of your work and fulfilling your health, well-being, resource needs. And you do that either through the options available to you from your full-time employer, through gig platforms, or through your network. So we see ourselves, certainly it's one of our milestones in the future, if not to necessarily go for it, to at least experiment with bottom-up and alternative workforce targeting strategies using a very much similar product, just a different go-to-market and monetization model.
Madeleine Evans from Levell, this has been fascinating. Thank you very, very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.